Hi, everyone. My name is Adam Harder. I'm the Senior Video Operations Manager at DigitalOcean. And today I'm going to be discussing how you can enhance your brand with some very simple video editing best practices that anybody can do. You do not have to have an entire video operations team like we do or an entire crew of editors on deck. This is something that you can do. But most importantly, you can do it with the assets that you already probably have somewhere in your trove. So a little bit about me. I have a background in video. Go figure. I was a broadcast journalist in the Air Force for 6 years, worked with NATO in Belgium and in Korea and all over the place. And right before I worked at DigitalOcean, I was a remote video producer at another company called 2U. And now here at DigitalOcean, Senior Video Operations Manager. So I kind of have my hand in all things video. And obviously my education was very much in the broadcast journalism and video realm as well, but we don't have to get into all that. More importantly, you want to use video for your marketing efforts. And in this startup session, I'm basically going to show you how to do the following things. You're going to apply a producer mentality to your video marketing. And the reason I put art and science here is because it is a little bit of art. You do have to understand your community a bit and how you're going to message, but it is also a little bit of science as well, because you have to have at least a little bit of technical know-how to get it over the line. And then we're also going to identify which of your brand assets can be turned into video content. And that's probably going to be the most important part of this, besides showing you some of the little, bits and bobs of how we're going to get there, which will come at the end. Then we're going to deliver your video narrative correctly based on your audience and honestly what you're trying to say. We're going to create platform appropriate content because each platform needs something a little bit differently as far as technical requirements or honestly just stylistic delivery. And then the last thing we're going to do will be navigate simple production tools that anyone can use. There's a whole slew of them out there. I'm only going to go over some of the ones that we like to use on the DigitalOcean video team, but I highly encourage you all to experiment with video editing tools yourselves. And then we're going to put it all into practice and make a video for social. And I truly, genuinely am telling you, I have not practiced that because I want to figure it out on our own. I've put some pieces in place, but I'm going to show you the actual thinking and puzzle solving that goes into making a quick social video. So it's going to be fun for all of us. So why use video marketing? Honestly, like I say here, well-executed video marketing, it takes time, but it's very authentic. You can look at the two quotes at the bottom that will basically tell you why statistically video marketing is not only advantageous for your marketing efforts now, but will continue to be so in the future, and how it's very much growing in the marketing space. But at the end of the day, when think about those campaigns that you remember from when you were a kid or the early 2000s or however old you are, right? They're often video campaigns, whether it's, the Dove body image campaign or any ridiculous marketing campaign from the 90s. They're usually video, right? Because it tends to be very impactful. The thing is that it's really hard to make good video campaigns because there's a lot of logistics that go into it, a lot of thought. But at the end of the day, if it's such an authentic way to reach your audience, they tend to appreciate that. So obviously you're no video pro, but that is totally okay. And as a matter of fact, if you're not a video pro, this talk is probably better for you anyways. So in the next few slides, I'm basically going to walk through questions you should be asking yourself before you ever even get started in making a video for a video marketing video. Forgive my redundantness. Make sure that you have an answer for the following questions before you really get started. And the first one is going to be, what is the purpose of your video? Okay, what are you trying to do, right? You got to know your purpose. Are you trying to sell a product, increase brand awareness, earn registrations for an event such as Deploy? There's so many different things that you might need to be achieving with your video. But I think the most important thing on this slide is definitely that just because you know what the purpose or the outcome of your video should be doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to know exactly what the final product looks like. And I definitely put for better or worse here intentionally, because sometimes you might end up getting some customer interviews and they say some really great sound bites, and it's pretty easy to make a great campaign out of that. Or maybe on the flip side, you can't control what people say. Maybe they didn't say such great things. And now, the product that you envision for yourself, you have to pivot or think of a more creative way to approach it in order to have that same impact that you originally envisioned. So that's just something to keep in mind. Definitely know your purpose, but understand that from getting from point A to point B, you have to be flexible. Question 2, what assets are you working with? Now, like I said, this is a very important slide because I think if you're watching this video and you're trying to market as an SMB or grow your business, odds are you probably have some photos of your growth or a logo, or maybe even some B-roll, which is existing supplemental footage. That's the stuff that plays in the background of an interview, right? And if you do, you can actually make good video marketing content out of any of this. You don't have to have all of it. You could even just have one of these. And with the right tools, you can still make something that's pretty engaging, that's going to make your audience want to learn more about your brand. Speaking of audience, question 3, who are they? You got to message accordingly to them because authenticity is key. And you really just have to meet them where they are, right? I think something in video, we see this a lot, or in marketing in general, right? Maybe somebody starts on a new marketing team or a new video production company, and they think that just because they have all the technical skills that they can make the most compelling content. And that's even for the pros, I guess that's not true, right? You have to actually sit back and be humble and understand that you don't necessarily always know what a new audience wants. You have to take the time and do your research and kind of show some empathy to put yourself in their shoes. And being totally honest with you, that was something I had to learn when I first came to DigitalOcean almost 2 years ago, was making video marketing for developers. I have a journalism background, and so I'm used to telling very human-driven stories, but you also have to message very straightforward to developers. These are a few examples that I'm showing here, right? Obviously, there's hundreds. These are 3 we're going to focus on. Developers, they really like straightforward messaging. They're very results oriented. They love to see some code, right? Because that's what they do. But if you really want to razz some berries, I say show a data center or 2. It's always a hit. 2 other types of customers and recommendations that I have for reaching them would still be new customers, authentic success stories. I think that's probably a very obvious one, but they're still pretty hard to do because you want to feature customers who are pleased enough with your product that they would be willing to advocate for it. And quite frankly, if you're a new customer looking to whether to believe in a new company or not, you want to hear it from the people who've used it. That's why when you go on Google, you look at the reviews, right? That's the same thing with this. You want to see people who have actually lived the experience of your company and want to advocate for it. So obviously, I guess step 1 there is, be good to your customers. The last one that I'll talk about here is existing customers. These are actually probably some of my favorite customers to market to because they already come from a place of understanding, right? They already know your product and they're already purchasing. So when you let them in on some new information, it's almost like you're talking to them like a friend, like you put your arm around them, right? And you're just like, hey, I got this new thing. You want to learn about it? And they're almost always on board because, again, they already like you. So those are just 3 different approaches that you can take for 3 different, very common customers. So question 4 is, where is this video being published? Now, as I said earlier, different platforms require different export settings, delivery messages, etc. There are obviously more platforms out there than what I'm showing you here, but these are ones that we have used and are obviously very, very popular. So I'll just spend a little bit of time on each of these. The biggest points being how to message them, right? So for YouTube, longer length and more details are okay. People are going on YouTube because they want to watch videos, right? Video isn't one of many other assets that live on YouTube. Video is the asset. So therefore, you can spend some more time getting into the details. If you're, DigitalOcean in that instance, you can actually show more code and even sometimes go up to an hour long, if depending on what the topic is. I would never, ever suggest that for something like Twitter, Facebook, or LinkedIn. And if you saw Kirby's startup session as well, she'd probably agree with me on that. You want short and sweet with Twitter and Facebook, quicker edits, more engaging, because as Kirby said, it's literally just like a speeding highway of information, and you want to get them to stop. You want to get them to basically hit the brakes and look at what you have to say. And in order to grab that attention, you have to have something pretty engaging. Therefore, wouldn't recommend an hour-long video. LinkedIn is kind of the same as Twitter and Facebook in that way. It is short and sweet, but you can afford to be a little bit longer just because it's a specialized audience, right? So brand messaging is the number 1 priority here, but you still want to get to the point. And then Twitch, obviously, which is an entire streaming platform. Streaming software is required for this, such as OBS or StreamYard. But what's interesting about Twitch and a lot of other streaming, services these days is that it's very loose feeling. And so the host can be working through things and just solving in real time. You don't have to come with an already completely sussed out beginning, middle, and end, because it's really just people wanting to watch the pros do what they do in real time. So a couple different approaches for some popular platforms. So question number 5 is, what tools do you have to work with? So some starter tools and advanced tools. I'll obviously spend more time on starter tools here. These are just some options that are out there for you. There's iMovie. We've all heard of iMovie, non-linear editing platform. Comes with Macs, but I'm going to be totally honest with you. I find it to be a pretty unfavorable UX. But it covers the basics, but it's honestly pretty hard to use. Animoto.com, something we've used somewhat infrequently at DO, but we have used it in the past. I do recommend it if what you want to do is assemble some like existing photos together into a coherent and engaging video. They're templatized graphics, right? So for instance, we have used it for things like Mother's Day or Father's Day. When people will submit photos, we'll put them on a timeline. It'll basically put some graphics there. You can put some music and a logo, and bam, you've got a good video. Premiere Rush is also pretty simple. You'd still have to have the Adobe suite to have it. Same with Adobe Spark, but you've very likely heard of Premiere Pro if you're in this talk, and that's a very advanced editing tool. That's what we kind of use in the industry as like the baseline. Rush is the simplified version of that. It has less options, but as such, you can kind of streamline your edits. And then Adobe Spark, which I'm actually going to show you at the end of this tutorial. We're going to try to make a thumbnail with it, right? Adobe Spark is a new web-based tool for quickly assembling static graphics. So things like thumbnails, headers on your website, Instagram posts that look pretty good, right? They're not like, you could obviously do more if you knew how to use Photoshop or Figma, but this is still pretty good. And then there's advanced tools. Speaking of Figma, I like to say it's like a kind of like a Photoshop Lite, right? But or like an Illustrator Lite. You can kind of just put things together more quickly and have a lot more control than Adobe Spark. But what's cool with Figma is if you actually have multiple people on your team who want to get in there and get their hands dirty on these designs, you can actually collaborate at the same time. You'll literally see people's cursors like crossing over and pulling things. And I've personally never experienced like an editing platform that does that in real time. I think it's really fun just to see how everybody's gears are turning. And then, of course, Premiere Pro, which is the standard non-linear editing software. And then lastly, if you've ever heard of After Effects, if you use After Effects, then this tutorial might be a little bit more advanced for you, because that's probably the hardest, might not be advanced enough for you, because After Effects is by far the most difficult program on this. But that's how you make your motion graphic animations. So some more tools for you, just so you can kind of elevate the content you already have. Freesound.org is a great resource. It is exactly what it sounds like. It is a trove of free sounds. And boy, oh boy, are there plenty of them on there. I actually had a professor in college who did the sound design for Jurassic Park movie. And he said he used freesound.org for some of the dinosaur sounds, right? Just to mash things together. So if it's good enough for him, it's probably good enough for you, right? Artlist.io, and motionarray.com. Subscription services, we use them all the time at DO. Love these. And then for templated graphics, if you want to actually brave something like After Effects, you can use Motion Array as well. The only other ones that I really want to spend time on here would be stock photos, Unsplash, and Pexels. Very much highly recommend them, and they're free. And you'd actually be really impressed by the quality of photos on there. It's not like people submitting iPhone photos. These are professional photographers giving really good stock photos out there for free. The one last thing I want to spend time on with this slide is remote recording tools, right? They're not all the same. Zoom can record at 1080p. Google Hangouts, unfortunately, can only record at 720p. Now, obviously, if you're recording on either of those, you are beholden to the quality of the connection. So if things are choppy, that will be recorded into the final video that is exported. We also use OpenReel at DO. It's another company that basically does remote recordings, but it actually records straight into their cloud. So no matter how bad the connection is, it still comes out like one smooth file, and that can record up to 4K. And then also, I love QuickTime. Highly recommend QuickTime, right? If you just need to record yourself, if you have QuickTime on your Mac, it's totally free. You can do audio recordings as well as video recordings. You can share your screen in a recording. It's just exactly what you need. All right, so let's bring all that information together and make an upload ready video, right? So I'm going to show you what I've done here. I have recorded myself as if as if my startup session was a promo, right? I recorded myself basically being interviewed. I wasn't really being interviewed. And I'm basically going to take some of those sound bites and I'm going to try to turn them into a quick little cohesive promo video for this exact startup session that you're in right now. Obviously, we're not going to use it because you're already in the startup session, but you get the point. And the whole thing being here, there are probably going to be times with your company where you do get a customer that says something great about you, but maybe it goes on for 20 minutes, right? Or maybe it goes on for 5 seconds. You just need to figure out how to make it look presentable, because if you just upload it on social as is, it's going to look kind of not that well done. I'm going to show you how to use Premiere today, very simply, to basically elevate that. And then we're going to try to make a thumbnail for it if we have time on Adobe Spark. So let's go over to Premiere. This is what Premiere looks like. That is me right there. And basically what I've done here is I've already gone through the recording and I've taken out a bit that's kind of usable. So if I press spacebar on my timeline, this is what a timeline is in Premiere. You obviously just sort of drag assets into Premiere and you can preview them by double clicking them. You can see what you want to take out. And when you decide like, oh, I really want to take this bit to this bit, I really like what that guy says there, literally just click and drag onto your timeline And this is where you do your editing at, right? This is where you kind of put things together. Think of it like Legos. But I don't know what I say there. And quite frankly, it's probably ridiculous. So we're just not going to use that. We're going to use this one that I've already listened to. So let's give this a listen. Yeah.
Hi, my name is Adam Harder, and I'm the Senior Video Operations Manager at DigitalOcean. I was lucky enough to be selected for a startup session to present at this year's Deploy conference. And so I thought to myself, where's the crossover between the web development space and the cloud space and video production, where I tend to reside? And I thought a lot of different SMBs probably have a lot of different footage floating around within their archives, whether that's photos, videos, logos, customer interviews. And something that I get asked all the time is, how can you actually take our existing assets and turn them into something that's engaging that our audience actually wants to click play on? Well, that's what I'm going to teach you how to do in my startup session at Deploy. I'm going to take all those different assets that you have. I'm going to walk you through different tools that you can use to actually turn them into engaging content. And then we're going to do a beta ourselves. I'm going to take this exact video that you're watching now. We're going to turn it into a marketing video. Who knows? Maybe we'll even upload it to our YouTube channel. Might be a little bit embarrassing for me, but that's kind of the fun of it all. Please press register for Deploy at the link below, and I look forward to seeing you all there.
Okay. So a few things with that. I rambled. I think that's obvious. And you will probably have customers who ramble as well. Now, how do you want to get rid of this, right? You can see that I've already made a cut here. I think this sign off at the end is not very good, quite frankly.
Register for Deploy at the link below, and I look forward to seeing you all there.
I kind of stumble, and I think it would be smoother to actually put a nice little title slide at the end that kind of says that. So why don't we go ahead, you just click on the piece of footage that you'd like and just delete on your keyboard, right? Now, something that you can do here is you want to kind of always just pull things to the front, because this, as you can see, there's time codes up here. It tells you how long this is going to be. So you pull this to the front, this clip, but something else that you can do, which is just a little trick of the trade that I didn't actually learn for quite a long time, is instead of taking the time to pull things over, you can right click and just ripple delete. Bam, look at that. Now, we're not going to upload this to YouTube because, again, this session is already happening and it's kind of silly. But if I was, and you upload things to YouTube, something to keep in mind that you can do on YouTube is add an end screen. And you can't do this for a lot of other platforms. And it's really, really engaging way to keep your audience tuned into your channel. You can actually make a little design like this. And when this comes up on YouTube and you upload it, you can actually see recommended videos from your channel that will come up. You can choose to put them in here. This circle is a subscribe button. So at the end of our DigitalOcean videos, you'll see this if you watch through the end, and we can do, our other channels as well for people to engage with. So it's really cool, but we won't be using that for this. So I've trimmed this down a bit. I'm not going to spend too much more time trimming it down just because, I don't want to use this entire session on that, but I'm going to show you how to do some other things. So this is a deploy talk, right? So we have branded assets for deploy, and you will probably have branded assets for your company, right? So we actually have a wipe, multiple wipes that we can use. I'm going to use logo wipe 3 and just pull that over here, right? Now, what's cool is that if you get, if you have a logo or if you have any sort of motion graphics yourselves, a lot of times they're exported in what we would call alpha. And that basically means that they're transparent at one point. So you can see that kind of stops and goes off screen on its own. This is obviously not the right size, though. It's very small. If you press plus on your timeline, you can zoom into things, right? We're going to right click. And anytime that you pull something into a timeline and it looks just funky, it's too small, it's too big, all you got to do is right click, scale to frame size. And now it is going to fit that viewfinder window up here, which obviously, as you can see, anything that I do down here reflects in the program window, which is this window right here. So now when this goes full screen, look who's there. There's nothing here at first.
Hi, my name is Adam Harder, and I'm the Senior Video Operations.
I don't like that I'm talking so much, though. When you can't see me, it's kind of strange. So why don't we move that back a little bit? We'll see when that cut happens. I think it's right there. So let's try that.
Hi, my name is Adam Harder, and I'm the Senior Video Operations Manager.
I think it's doable. It's not perfect, but it's doable. Yeah. And so now what we'll do is we will do a lower thirds. Even though I already say, hi, my name's Adam Harder, it's honestly pretty subjective. Some people like to use lower thirds anyways. Some people don't. I think for the sake of just showing you how to do it, I will here. So one of the assets that I told you about was motionarray.com. It's a really, really useful resource. You can download different templates. One of those is called a motion graphic template, or MOGRT is what it looks like. You download that, and if you just pull that into Premiere, you can just upload it like any other file. It'll show up in your essential graphics panel. So you just go Window, essential graphics. What this means when you click window is that I want any of these things. I want any of these to populate in my Premiere. So I just chose, yes, show me essential graphics. And then this comes up. So this one's pretty cool. My name is not Monica Blanca, but we can change that. So I also just don't like that it makes things change because Premiere will kind of, auto size things and it can get kind of annoying. So let's go ahead and close that panel now and have a look. So again, I said this is kind of small, right? Let's go ahead and scale to frame size. And we will make this a little smaller now. It's kind of huge, right? Let's see here. There we go. Scale. There we go. And we will just kind of move it this way. And usually what's kind of cool with Premiere is if you see these safety margins right here, that's just typical broadcast safety margins, meaning anything outside of that might be hard to see or just be awkwardly formatted. But if you line things up right there, they'll usually look pretty good. So now I will click on this again. Oh, I guess I have to open up. See, like I said, art and science. Let's open up that essential graphics panel. And if I click on this now, it will bring up the option to change what's in it. So Adam Harder is my name. And we will make this Senior Video Operations Manager. And we'll go ahead and just make this the old DO Blue. There we go. F9. You guys were curious what it used to be. And that should update here now. Let's take a look. Let's go ahead and make this smaller because this is just really, really strangely proportioned right now. There's no need for your assets window to be that large and your timeline to be that small. That's just insane. There we go. Okay. Now you can see it changed blue up here, but if it's red, so if I try to press play here, it's going to be really choppy. That basically means that that data just hasn't rendered yet. So we're going to press return. When you press return, as you can see, it is now rendering the file. So it will be a smooth playback for you when you want to do this on your own timeline. Now, let's see what that looks like in application.
I'm the Senior Video Operations Manager at DigitalOcean. I was lucky enough to be selected for a startup session to present at this year's Deploy conference. And so I thought to myself, where's the crossover between the web?
Nice. I mean, I'll be honest with you, I'm not crazy about the motion of it, but it still looks kind of sharp. So I'm going to go ahead and just zoom in and make that. I always recommend when you bring in a lower third, you kind of let the person speak for 2 or 3 seconds, just to kind of give the viewer a chance to establish what they're seeing before they have to read something. It's just much more comfortable for the eye. The last thing we're going to do to kind of make this a presentable little soundbite is put some nice transitions on it, right? So we are going to do a video and audio transition. So we're going to do a constant power at the end. What that basically does is it just makes the music really casually just sort of fade out, or the audio. And I'm actually going to put an audio track on this as well in a second. And then, yeah, actually, we don't even need any other transitions. I guess just for the sake of it, we'll put a dip to black on the beginning, which is a video transition, actually at the end, just to kind of have a nice fade out. Let's see what that looks like. Yeah.
Embarrassing for me, but that's kind of the fun of it all.
I mean, I cut myself off, but you kind of see the point there. If I take that away, it will just be an abrupt looking ending. And the last thing we're going to do here is going to put some music on here. I've not heard this song, but let's give it a try. See what this sounds like, right? Pretty loud. You always want to bring your audio way lower than your narration, okay? So here we go.
Whether that's photos, videos, logos, customers.
I think that sounds pretty good.
Something that I get asked all the time is how can you actually take our existing assets and turn
bring it lower.
That's engaging that our audience actually wants to click play on.
And there you have it. That's a very, very rudimentary way to put something together with music, video, and transitions. Now, I know we only have 5 minutes left, so we're going to go ahead and just quickly show you how to basically take this and make take Adobe Spark and make a thumbnail. Because obviously you need to present this, right? Do not worry. This is not our official deploy thumbnail. I basically just used a background that was provided for streaming and I put it into a thumbnail here. So when you go into Adobe Spark, you can actually just go over to libraries and create different libraries. So I have ones for our developer faces, some background elements, and you can make out of it whatever you want. So if I want to just like change the text here, I can do that. And just do all sorts of different things to it. You can change the shape of it. You can put a shadow on it. Let's see here, which I'm not going to do because that looks terrible. But the last thing that I will do here, and is probably the coolest thing that I think Adobe Spark does for you when you do make thumbnails here, is we're going to go to dev faces. I'm not a developer, but don't tell anybody. And I took a ridiculous photo in the deploy shirt today. It's really nice to have faces on thumbnails. That's something to keep in mind. There's two big rules of thumbnails: big text that's easy to read, and faces if possible. People tend to click on smiling, happy faces. So, not somebody crying, but somebody who looks like they're excited about what they're doing. So we're going to extend this out. And what's really cool, obviously that doesn't work right there, is if you go to remove background up here and edit image, it will actually automatically crop the image for you, which is pretty cool. So I'm just going to say that that's fine. I think the jury's out on whether that's actually fine. But why don't we go ahead and move me over here? Okay. That looks really silly. My arm is cut off. We're actually going to move me back over here. And we'll move me down a little bit just so you can kind of see the logo in the shirt. Right. There we go. And I don't want to cut the word off, so you can actually bring things forward and backwards. Why don't we go ahead and make this smaller? Okay. There we go. And you just drag things around, right? The same as you would when we were a kid with our like little, Microsoft Vista editing softwares. It's very rudimentary and it gets the job done. We can make this smaller to make this fit here. And that's kind of how you can use this to make thumbnails as well. So we're getting a few questions here. This is actually great because this is a great stopping point. I'm never going to use this thumbnail, but you get the idea. I really, really love the fact that it crops photos for you because that can actually be a very tedious task, and I highly recommend it. But do keep in mind that Spark can be very finicky. So some questions that came up were, what software do you recommend for recording a video and for editing a video? So like I said earlier, for recording a video, it really just depends on what you're trying to do. If you're recording yourself, use something like QuickTime. You do not have to get some big fancy, self-recording software. It does the job. You can record your camera, you can record your screen, and it's high res. If you're recording multiple people, like I said, if I had to choose between a remote recording software, I would go with Zoom, simply because it's 1080p and because Zoom allows you to toggle between speaker view and tile view when recording. And Hangouts doesn't allow you to do that. So that would be what I would choose if you were just trying to go with normal remote recording softwares, or remote meeting softwares. The next question is, do you have advice on what type of video has the greatest ROI for your effort? Video editing takes a lot of time when you're one person, especially if you're not a video pro. So live streams feel easier, but not sure if it performs well. That is a great question. It actually has a lot of layers to it. So when it comes to live streaming, it is easy, right? It's obviously very easy, but its ROI is short because it's only relevant for a short amount of time, usually. And it can be kind of long and disjointed. If you're looking for something that's professional that you actually want to use for marketing efforts, I wouldn't recommend using a live stream. If you want to use something to just engage your audience, such as the developer community, to just figure things out, I would suggest live streaming. So something that would give you a good ROI if you're not a video professional. I know that this sounds redundant here, but literally take what you have. What do you got? Do you have testimonials from customers? Do you have your employees just doing shout outs of the company? Do you have footage of a conference that you went to? And I would hate to use this term, but like church it up, right? Make it presentable, give it its Sunday best and put your best foot forward. Because if you're trying to convince new customers to actually spend their time with you, you don't want your content to look like it's haphazard or that you didn't put as much time in. Like, think about creating good content as your first impressions, and first impressions matter. Right? If you don't put your best handshake and eye contact forward in meeting somebody in a business environment, then like they might not think as much of you. And that's the same thing with customers, right? That you just have to put on your best foot forward. And I think that's no different. So use what you've got and just elevate it. And yes, and streaming is fine, but I wouldn't be using that for like paid marketing efforts. Let's see here. I'm a newbie. I bought an HD movie maker, but I want something simpler. What do you suggest? You bought HD movie maker, but you want something simpler. Um, Again, it really just depends on what type of movie you're trying to make. I think truly, like if you want to make something very rudimentary, Animoto.com. But if you actually want to use something that's better than iMovie, but not as hard as Premiere Rush, just keep in mind that you do have to get the Adobe suite for that. And they do have discounts, right? Like if you're a student, they give a discount. So something to keep in mind. Next question is, would you recommend putting in time to run A/B tests on video styles and formats? I mean, absolutely yes. Absolutely yes. You're putting so much time into making video content. It's like the hardest medium to make or media to make that of course you should be testing it, because otherwise you're just wasting even more time and money than you would be if you were making other types of media. And we do this all the time, right? Like we've tested live streams on different platforms. Like we test customer stories, like very in-depth hour-long videos with devs to little 1-minute quick start tutorials, and we see how they test, and we report back to devs and other content creators to let them know yes or no. Like for instance, a good example of this would be I made like just kind of a mini series in the winter when I realized that we were getting a lot of different comments on our YouTube channel asking very technical questions. Like quite frankly, we as marketers are not qualified to answer, but the developers are and the engineers are. So I would basically call up one of the devs or the engineers and say, I'm going to read you a bunch of comments and questions, and I'm just going to record you answering them in real time, get those authentic, funny responses, and have you thinking about it. And it was really cool. It was a lot of fun. It was very simple to produce, but it didn't really perform all that well. Like, well, they performed okay, right? But not so much that I would like live and breathe by it. It was just a engaging way to try and connect with our audience. And it was fun for a few, and we tried it out and on to the next thing, right? Until you find the ones that really hit and that you really want to continue to produce. But absolutely, you should be A/B testing things. But I also would say, to Kirby's point, it's hard to gauge things on social a lot of the times. Just because one video didn't work doesn't mean you shouldn't keep trying a few more. It could depend on what the content was. It could depend on how popular is the person in the video. What time did you post it? What are your peak hours? There's so many different elements that I think I personally like to try things out at least 3 to 5 times before I'm like, maybe there's a pattern here, right? Let's see here. One of the last questions is, with the popularity of TikTok type videos, YouTube shorts, etc., how do you see the video marketing industry changing in the next few years? Do you think it will ever replace HQ production videos completely? Yes and no. Well, short answer is no. I don't think it will ever replace it completely, because people actually demand the best when it comes to content. That doesn't mean the best is always what's the best for the type of content that you need, right? Like it just depends on the audience. Where I see the industry going, though, is going to be a lot more, it's going to be tedious. I think it's interesting when people say like, oh, we're going to need like a TikTok channel, right? Or we're going to need a bunch of different streaming services, and we just need to make a lot of content really quickly. Who's going to think of all that content? Who's going to film all that content? Who's going to post all that content? Who's going to do all the descriptions? Like, that's a lot of work. And producers are still the right people for that, but they better be clever producers, and they better be their job. Because in order to obviously separate yourself in such a fast video marketplace like that, you have to be churning content. It is a hustle. So that's just something to keep in mind as well, that you will have to be working extra hard to do that. So that's basically it. I'm happy that you guys asked questions. Here's my last little slide here. I appreciate you watching. Go forth, make some movie magic, and feel free to contact me anytime. Here's my contact information. And as always, subscribe to our YouTube channel.